Welcome back to the Bears Baseball Network. We've got our center field preview for the 2023 season. Continuing our position preview, our final hitter position preview before we pick up with pitchers starting next week. But center field, very exciting position. Some of the best players in the Bears play this position. It's going to be a fun one here, and let's go ahead and kick it off like we always do with 18U Floyd. This team, once again, a very obvious center field option. It is going to be Mac Floyd. Top 5 hitter in the Bears. Obviously not really a competition for this one. Mac's going to be dominating the center field. Not much to say about Mac. Bernie, I do want to throw this to you. Mac, I would say, a little bit of a slow summer last year, and maybe even a slow August before he really was probably a top 3 hitter in the Bears September onward. But just give me some quick thoughts about Mac.
I believe I picked him last fall as my MVP. Looks like I was about a month too early because after the first month of the season, he went on tear. I think he was the MVP from there on out the rest of the season. But, I think Mac's probably the best defensive center fielder in the Bears, one of the best arms, and obviously one of the top 5 or top 3 bats in the organization as well.
Yeah, not much to say about Mac. A superstar. Another guy who I do want to talk about because this guy's probably going to be playing center field when Mac is pitching, and that's Sean Ferguson. And KJ, I know you've got Sean on your BWL team. He's a guy that ever since he joined the Bears, we've really liked the tools. Obviously, very good athlete, very strong, very fast. Just give me your thoughts on Sean and if he can man a good center field when Mac's pitching.
Yeah, Sean's kind of the guy. He's going to be more of a defensive guy. He's got really good speed. He'll play a really, really good center field. It's just if his bat is gonna be there. He'll hold his own at the plate. He's not going to be in your top half of the order. But I think his defense is going to be so good that you won't really miss the bat when Mac's pitching.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mac, the way he's been pitching lately, definitely going to be due for a ton of innings, so Sean's going to be important out there. Moving down to 16U Burnsville, Fred Smith, the guy in center field. Bernie, I don't know if it's much of a competition. He's been the guy for a while, been on the Bears for a long time. And this is a guy, Bernie, good plate discipline, good contact skills, good defender. He's not necessarily a superstar, but a guy who's really not going to hurt you, Bernie. Give me your thoughts on Fred Smith.
Yeah, like you said, Fred's never going to hurt you. I think he's one of those guys that just does everything right. He's a really good glove out there. Not quite the arm Mac Floyd has, but he's getting there. His glove is right up there, though. I think with Mac's at times. And with the bat, he's going to put the ball in play. He's not going to strike out too often. He's going to bat toward the top of the order. So just a player that's going to do a lot of things right.
Yeah, Freddie, he's kind of perennially been a sleeper on that 16U Burnsville squad. Always a very solid player, always one of the better players on that team. And maybe gets slept on a little bit with some of the other guys who've emerged from Burnsville, like Hobson, like Calmese, and these guys who've kind of surpassed him a little bit in terms of the public eye. But Fred Smith's still there, still a very solid player. Moving on to 15U. I would say 15U, this is one of the positions that maybe isn't as clear as the rest of them. Obviously, the 2 big options here are Evan Osborne, who's kind of obviously known for his pitching, going to be one of the best pitchers in the Bears, a very good defender, an elite arm in center field. And then Ben Lillard, who's a guy who very fast. At times he's looked like a premier defender, but at other times he's looked like not, the opposite of a premier defender. He's made a couple mistakes. So I think if Ben can find some consistency, maybe he ends up finding his way out there as a starting center fielder. And I think Evan Osborne's more of the safe option. And Bernie, I want to start with you with Ben Lillard. This is a guy who I would say for a long time has kind of been looked at as a guy who, if he could put it all together, what could he be? A lot of power, a lot of speed. He hasn't really seen a season where he's been able to put it all together. But give me your thoughts on Ben Lillard, Bernie. Obviously, a lot of tools here.
Yeah, I think he's a good option out there if Dalton does choose to use him out in center. I think he can just make some plays that, no offense to Evan just can't make. Right? Ben has the speed to track down some balls that I don't think Ben can, or I don't think Evan can make those plays. But at the same time, Evan is much like if a fly ball's hit right at him, Evan's gonna catch the ball 100% of the time. And I've seen Ben a couple times mess up and misread the ball or just drop the ball altogether. I think Ben's the upside guy, but Evan's definitely the safer option out there.
Yeah, we kind of talked about this with shortstop, where I think Ben's one of those guys who will go out and make a diving play in the gap that nobody else would even get to, and then the next play he'll drop a ball right at him, So you see the upside from Ben. You think he could be that premier center fielder. We even talked about him, Bernie, last year in the Platinum Glove conversation, preseason. We thought he could be a Platinum Glove contender, and definitely some weekends he looked like it. And then on the other side, you have Evan, who's a much safer option. And KJ, I want to go to you here for Evan. obviously known for his pitching. You've gotten to coach him in BWL. He's a superstar pitcher. But what have you seen from the bat with him? If he is Dalton's starting center fielder, he's probably going to be batting toward the bottom of that lineup. Do you think he can hold his own with the bat?
Yeah, I think, what you get out of him with pitching and what you get out of him with defense and even on the bases, I think it's worth it. If he's going to bat in that 9 or 10 spot, I think he's going to be a really, really solid 9 or 10 bat. He's going to take good at bats. He's not going to, be crushing balls over the fence, but I think he'll mix in a couple home runs. And he takes good at bats. He'll take walks, and when he gets on base, he can definitely run the bases really well.
Yeah, 100%. Evan, I almost think Evan's a little bit like Fred Smith, Bernie, where he just does everything right, even though he's not necessarily a superstar. He just is not going to hurt you in any facet of the game. So I think he would be a very solid option out there for Dalton, with Ben Lillard being the more high upside, low floor option out there. Moving on to 14U. Just like 18U, really not a discussion here, really not a competition. It's Andrew Willerette out there. KJ, I know you didn't really get to talk about him much last year when me and Bernie were doing BBN and you were kind of, doing your own thing as a player. Willerette, he's a superstar. You've gotten to coach him in BWL on both your 14-15 team and your 16-8U team. What's there left to say about Andrew Willerette other than he's a top 5 player in the Bears?
Yeah, there's really it's very, very hard to get this guy out. You never know what you're going to get out of Andrew. Sometimes he goes up there, will take 2 pitches down the middle, and you still think he's going to get a hit. Even when he's down 0-2. He's always in the at bats. He'll hit. He's not going to strike out, and it's kind of rare to find a guy who never strikes out and hits bombs. And this guy does it both. He's just so consistent at the plate. He never really gives you a bad at bat, man. He's never out of the at bat, and obviously his defense is pretty good. His pitching's pretty good. So, not much more to say about him.
Yeah, an all-around player. And one thing we don't talk about Andrew Willerette a lot is his defense. And, he's not necessarily a Mac Floyd out there. He's probably not even a Fred Smith out there, but he's a very above-average center fielder. He's going to make all the easy plays, and he's going to mix in some superstar plays where he gets it in the gap. Obviously, he's on the team for his bat, but he's definitely going to be an above-average center fielder with, I think, the tools to be a very good to elite center fielder out there. So, a guy, top 5 player in the Bears, not much else to say about Andrew Willerette. He's a superstar. Moving on to 13U, this is a conversation I think is probably the most interesting competition for center field in the Bears on a varsity team. You have 3 guys in Evan Lancaster, Aaron Knoll, and then Brendan Bass, who's going to be playing his grade this year instead of his age. 3 guys who are all competing for center field. Obviously, whoever doesn't win the center field job is probably going to find themselves in the corner outfield. But 3 guys who I think have varying degrees of upside and a high floor guy. And I want to start, Bernie, with you, with Evan Lancaster. He's kind of the veteran of this group. He's been on this team by far the longest of these 3. He's played the infield. He's played the outfield. He really filled a hole in center field last fall that they needed. Obviously, I think Evan's a little bit more known for his pitching, but give me your thoughts, Bernie, on Evan Lancaster on both his offense and defense.
Yeah, the comparison I would make for Evan Lancaster, honestly, I think he's a slightly more powerful, like Evan Osmond type guy. I mean, on center field defensively, at least, he's going to make all the routine plays. He's not going to drop anything. He'll take control out there, and at the plate, he's not going to go out there and hit 30 bombs a season, but he'll hit some bombs. He hits the ball really hard at the plate. So, yeah, I think Evan's going to have a good offensive and defensive season.
Yeah, Evan Lancaster definitely has shown in the past he could be an elite hitter. I think the big thing with him, if you really want to dive in kind of the analytics of Evan, he just puts the ball on the ground way too much. He hits way too many ground balls, and that's where you see, even though he's got this big power potential, he doesn't really get as many extra base hits as I think he could because he hits the ball on the ground that much. I know he's been working on it a lot in the offseason. He's taken some really good at-bats in BWL, and he's been crushing the ball in the cage. So I think there's definitely potential for him to be a superstar with the bat. I definitely would say of these 3 guys, he's your high floor option for center field because he's not going to make any mistakes out there, and he's going to make all the routine plays. KJ, I want to go to you for this next one. Brendan Bass, obviously you got to coach him all year last year. He's moving up, going to play his grade. How do you think Brendan's going to fit in with these 13U guys, kind of moving up the ladder?
I think he's going to fit right in. I don't think he's going to have much trouble adjusting. He's another guy in center. He's going to make all the routine plays. It's kind of questionable whether he'll make the great plays, but ball hit right at him, you're not going to have to worry at all. He's kind of a guy who's a little bit passive in center field. I like my center fielders to go out there and, try to get everything, dive for balls, call off the other outfielders all the time. He's a little bit passive in center, but obviously, his bat's going to hold his own, what he does on the mound, what he does on the bases. can all make up for a glove that's already pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Brendan, kind of staying with this theme, I think he kind of fits in between Evan and Aaron, with Evan being the high floor option, Brendan kind of being that hybrid player, and then Aaron Knoll being that super high ceiling player. Aaron, KJ, you talk about a center fielder, you want to go out, make plays all around the outfield, call everybody off, make the diving play. That's Aaron Knoll. There are times last year when he would, again, make a diving play in the gap and then drop a routine ball. And I think that's why Evan ended up taking the center field job from Aaron last fall, because Evan wasn't going to drop anything. And I thought that was the priority in center field. But Aaron, definitely, when you watch him play, he gets to some balls that nobody else can get to. He probably hits the ball harder than anybody in this group. He's probably got the most power potential of anybody in this group. And I think definitely the high ceiling is there, where if he hits to his potential, he's the guy in center field. The question is going to be, is he going to hit that potential? But definitely a guy that we liked all year last year on BBN. And really, it's interesting, Bernie. I actually went back and I was listening to some of the old BBN episodes. It's crazy how we were talking about this guy as, back into the bench. Could he maybe work his way in the lineup? And then this year we're talking about him middle of the lineup. Could be the center fielder. Could be a superstar. So definitely a very interesting center field battle for that 13U squad. Moving on to 12U, another interesting center field battle. You've got Austin Arnaiz and Jaden Highland. And KJ, I want to start with you with Jaden Highland, a guy who's kind of moved all the way around the field, another guy who's kind of more known for his pitching than his bat. But at least for me, KJ, he's shown a lot defensively this winter. And I think if he could take a step forward with the bat, he could be a very nice option for this team.
Yeah, Jane, obviously, like you said, this guy can play a little bit of everywhere. It was kind of tough for us to really commit to putting him in the outfield because he's so good in the infield. So, but he really didn't have much trouble adjusting to the outfield. He played a little bit of the corners last year, but he's definitely going to be one of our top options in center this year. He's a guy, like Aaron Knoll, who he's going to run, he's going to dive for balls, he's going to be aggressive out there. He seems like this quiet, sweet little kid, but he's a competitor on the field. So he's definitely going to compete for that job.
Yeah, 100%. And Bernie, I want to throw this next one to you. Austin Arnaiz, a guy who 2 years ago was one of the top hitters on this team. Last year maybe took a step back a little bit, found some inconsistency problems. But I think the ceiling is still there for this guy. He's super fast, and that's always nice to have in center field. Give me your thoughts on Austin Arnaiz, and if you think he could have a nice bounce-back season here.
Yeah, I think we've already seen Austin do it before, so I don't see any reason why Austin cannot get back to his old form. But defensively, I think he's going to be fine out there in center field. I think he'll make all the routine plays. I think he has the speed to possibly track down some plays that no one else can make. And at the plate, he definitely hits the ball hard enough. I know back at least when I used to watch him a lot, he hit a lot of ground balls, kind of like Evan Lancaster did. So maybe making that adjustment. And, other than that, I think Austin's a good option out there.
Yeah, I think either one of these guys will be a very good option defensively. And I think the question is going to be which of these two guys offers more with the bat, who ends up winning that job. But definitely a very nice combo there with Arnaiz and Highland, which, even if Highland wins a job, he pitches a lot, Arnaiz is going to have to play out there anyway. So I think either one of these guys will do a very fine job. Moving on to 11U, Bernie, I would say a little bit of a mystery box for this team. Obviously, you got this kid, Carter Byrne, who's brand new to the Bears, just came in, at this point, like a month and a half ago, very, very new. A guy who has shown potential that he could be that speedy defensive outfielder. And then, of course, you got Brody Wilburn, who's a veteran. Obviously, he's got to play at the position, so could you really stick him out there? And then another guy who's a rookie, and maybe Harry Bundren, who's kind of become this utility guy among 11U. So a lot of different guys here, but I want to start with Carter Byrne, Bernie. Brand new to the Bears. Haven't gotten to see a ton of him yet, but give me your initial thoughts on Carter Byrne.
Yeah, like you said, Carter Byrne's basically brand new from rec ball or whatever. I don't think even on his rec ball team he played a lot of outfield, so he's very, very raw out there. But I think he has the speed. I think he has potential. Give him a little bit of time out there. I think he has potential to become a very good option for the team.
Yeah, a guy who I think is going to, have some good plate discipline at the plate. I think he's going to walk a lot. I think he's going to put the ball in play a lot. Definitely, I think if he's in this starting lineup, it's probably going to be for that defense. And I think he's definitely got the tools to be a very solid defensive outfielder. And then the other two, Brody Wilburn, obviously I think if he was in center field, he would hold it down 100%. The issue with that, obviously, is then you got to fill in the catcher position because Brody is, on paper, the starting catcher. And then you have Harry Bundren, who, again, like you said with Carter, hasn't had a whole lot of outfield experience, so if you moved him out there, he'd have to really find his way through it, but I think he could be a solid option as well. Definitely a lot of different options that this 11U Burnsville could use in center field. Let's move on to some prospects. I've got 3 prospects who are very solid options, and I'm going to go ahead and go first this week. I want to talk about a guy who we talked about a lot on the BBN last year, and a guy who maybe has gotten lost in the shuffle a little bit this winter with a lot of different guys really shining through, and that's Phil Lobeck. And this is a guy who was a very high mark on the prospect list last year, a guy who I think this winter has kind of gotten overshadowed a little bit, but I think he's still here, and I think he's still going to come out this summer with probably starting on that Burn squad, and I think he could be a very, very solid option early in the season, that if he gets off to a hot start, and we talk about there's kind of a question mark in center field with 12U Floyd, he could definitely jump into the starting lineup if he does come off to a hot start. The question with Phil is always going to be his bat. How consistent is he going to be? How much power is he going to deliver? But I think if he really works hard, and he's definitely, there's no question about his hard work, if he can really translate that into games, I think he could definitely find his way on this 12U Floyd squad, maybe even in a starter capacity, but I like this guy a lot. Bernie, I want to throw this one to you, a 13U guy who, again, no question about his work ethic. He's been working his butt off all winter long, and a guy who I think is going to have a very nice start to the season, and that is Nate Pollard. Bernie, give me your thoughts on Nate Pollard.
Yeah, like you said, there's no question about the work ethic. I mean, free swing, precision pitching, knockout, circuit. I mean, anything possible. I always see him at the Bud Dome at least like 3 or 4 nights a week. I think he's have a real chance on this. Assuming he starts the season on Kreitler, I think he'll be one of the top of the order guys. He'll be the center fielder for that squad. I think he has a big chance here to kind of just, I don't know, have a big season.
Yeah, and when you talk about this Kreitler squad, I think he's the most reliable outfielder out there. I think he could really shine in that role. And if he does come out and hit well at the beginning of the season, he could very quickly find his way traveling up the ranks of this 13U age group. Moving on, KJ, to your guy. This guy, brand new to the Bears, one of the newest guys joining the Bears, but a guy who's already made an impact in BWL and in free swing as well. You know, he's been putting up big numbers. That is Roe Selby. KJ, give me your thoughts on Roe.
Roe is a guy who's already really, really talented. You know, we don't get a lot of these guys who come in as talented as Roe is, and he's hopped in free swing. He just put up a big number Tuesday or Monday in free swing, 95 miles an hour. He's really, really fast in the outfield. I think, you know, by the end of the year, he maybe could compete for a corner outfield spot on the top team if he doesn't start there. This guy is a good bat. You know, he's really patient at the plate, but he's aggressive on fastballs, which is something I know Rob looks for. This guy's going to hit for some power. He's going to play really good defense. He's a great clubhouse guy.
Yeah, and KJ, you mentioned, I think he has a very good opportunity to start the season on the 18U Floyd bench. But even if he starts it as the top of the order guy for that 18U Smith team, I think he will very quickly find his way onto 18U Floyd, because I think he's going to be one of the best players in the outfield for that Smith team. And then, KJ, another thing you touched on, I think the biggest thing for him is, can he be a little bit more aggressive? You know, we've seen him in BWL where he's taken some strikes and gotten himself in deep counts. If he could just really be more aggressive on those early pitches, I think he could really do some damage at the plate. Moving on to sleepers and breakouts. Once again, a sleeper is a player that maybe the general public is overlooking, who we think is going to overperform their kind of projected outcome. And then a breakout is a guy who's going to go from the tier they're in last year and go up 1, maybe 2 tiers. And for us, the tiers: superstar, star, starter, role player, and prospect. And a lot of different guys on this breakout list who I think are going to be in different tiers and break into different tiers. But let's go ahead and start with our sleepers. KJ, I want to start with you, a guy on your 12U team, Austin Arnaiz, a guy who I think, once again, was not too long ago a top player on this team. Last year, a little bit of a down year. Tell me about your sleeper case for Austin Arnaiz.
Even when Austin had a really, really good year, you know, we always were looking for more out of him. And I think this is really the first off season where we've really gotten all of Austin. He's in almost every program. I always see him. He's in catching. He's in fast infield. He's in free swing. So this guy's at the Bud Dome a ton. I think he's going to have a really, really nice season. I know last year it definitely bothered him being on the bench more than he was in previous years. And I think that really fueled him for as good as an offseason as he has. You know, I think there's certain players who respond to, you know, playing a lesser role than they are used to in a negative way, and they do less. And Austin responded in a very positive way and got himself into these programs and worked really, really, really hard this offseason. So I think he's gonna see the rewards from that, and I think he's gonna have a very nice year and be pretty pleased with his playing time.
Yeah, and that's something we talk about all the time. If you're not happy with your role, do something about it. Work harder. I think there are a lot of guys who, especially when they go from being a starter to the bench, a lot of guys will just give up and stop working hard and quit baseball or whatever. Austin went from starting lineup to the bench and said, you know what, I'm going to do something about this and get back in that starting lineup. I agree. I think he's worked really hard this offseason, and I think he could come out and have a big April early on and really establish himself as one of the top players in the Bears once again. Bernie, going to go to your sleeper here. Guy we talked about a little bit in Sean Ferguson. Bernie, give me your sleeper case for Sean.
Yeah, I think right now, to the public perception, I think Sean's just kind of known as Mac's backup center fielder right now. I think he could be much more than that. He's gonna be great in center when Mac's pitching, right? He's gonna be great out there. But I think if he can find just a little bit of consistency with the bat, the power's there. Just find a little bit of consistency. I think there is a definite path to him taking a corner outfield starting job for that squad. But I think he's gonna make a big contribution to that top team this season.
Yeah, and you look at this 18U Floyd corner outfield, even when you take all of the guys who could be in the corner outfield situation, Sean Ferguson's probably the second best defender. So when you are the second best defender in the outfield, you don't necessarily have to out-hit the guy in front of you. You just have to be close because your glove will end up pushing you ahead. I think there's definitely an opportunity for Sean to do that. For me, my sleeper is going to be on that same my sleeper is going to be on that 15U squad in Evan Osborne. This is a guy who I think his bat is definitely slept on. I think he's going to put together some really good at-bats. I've been impressed with the at-bats that he's gotten in BWL. You kind of, at least me, I don't know if everybody thought like this, I kind of thought Evan as a very passive hitter, a guy who doesn't necessarily swing hard. He tries to just put the ball in play and walk. And I really haven't seen that in BWL. I think he's been more aggressive than I thought he was. And I think he swung a lot harder than I thought he did. And I think he could find himself when he's getting every day at bats where he wasn't really doing that last year. If he gets, 12 at-bats a weekend, I think you could see this guy really put up some nice numbers for this Dalton squad, especially when you take into account that you got to pitch to somebody in this Dalton lineup. You can't pitch around everybody, so I think Evan's going to be the recipient of getting a lot of fastballs, getting a lot of strikes, and really I think he could do some damage on that. Moving on to our breakouts. Bernie, I'll start with you this time. A guy who I think was a breakout for you last year. Definitely hit it on the head last year. You think he's going to break out even further? Give me your thoughts, your breakout case on Aaron Noel.
Yeah, I think last year he was kind of an unknown commodity. He kind of went from the bench to kind of the starter. But I think starting this year as a starter, I think he will. I think he could go up to superstar, but I think it's more realistic to say star this season. I think obviously the upside's there. He can make a lot of plays in center field that just nobody else can make, like Mac Floyd type of plays. He has a very good arm out there as well. And at the plate, he definitely possesses a very powerful bat. I think it's just finding a little bit of consistency with it.
Yeah, for me, I think Mac Floyd's a great comparison for Aaron. Both hit for more power than necessarily their size. Both are super fast, super athletic. And I think the difference is Mac obviously is very consistent. And I will say, Aaron's a much better player than Mac was when Mac was 13U. So Aaron, the ceiling is so high for this guy. He could be a definite superstar. And, going into the season as a starter, where last year he went into the season basically at the back of the bench, got sent down to Bell at one point, worked his way back up and worked his way into the starting lineup. I could definitely see him breaking into that star conversation going into this year. KJ, your breakout in the center field position.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Evan Lancaster. I think sometimes he can be compared to Ian, and although he's less in size, this guy kind of still has the same pop off the bat. If you watch Evan hit, he's much more aggressive than Ian is. And the ball off the bat kind of still looks the same as it does between the two Lancasters. Ian obviously is more known as a power bat, but if you watch Evan, the ball comes off his bat a little bit differently than others. He does hit a lot of balls on the ground, a lot of balls on the line, but they're hard. And so this guy's going to play obviously good defense. He's obviously a really good pitcher, and I think this guy's going to have a really, really good season with the bat.
Yeah, we touched on it earlier. If he could put a little bit more of those balls that are hit, 85 mile an hour on the ground, if he could just put that in the air, you're going to see this guy hit 5, 6, 7 home runs. And I definitely think there's potential for that. And then, I definitely think KJ, he could get back to kind of that top of the order conversation where he was, kind of last year. And for me, my breakout is going to be Jaden Highland. This is a guy who of all the players that I run practices for, this is probably one of the guys who I've gained the most respect for over the winter. I didn't run 12U practices last year. I just went into this winter, and obviously I knew Jaden as a pitcher. There's probably not a guy who's impressed me more running 12U practices than Jaden Highland has. He's super, super gritty. He's a super hard worker. He has a very good arm. Whether he's playing the infield or the outfield, I think either way, I think he's going to find his way into this starting lineup, and his glove is going to be so good that it's going to be tough to take him out, even if his bat isn't necessarily top of the order caliber. I think if he could deliver as the 7th, 8th, 9th hitter and play elite defense, I think you could see this guy jump into that starter role where last year he was more of a role player. I think Jaden is going to have a very nice season, and I think he's proved a lot of people wrong that he can hit at this level, and I'd be excited to see if he could really step up this year with the bat. That's going to do it for the Bears Baseball Network. Next week, we have our pitcher preview, part 1. We're going to look at all the high school pitchers in the Bears, and that should be a very good episode. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Bears Baseball Network, and we'll talk to you all next week.